Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Queen Elizabeth Hall. If you have a mobile phone or a watch with an alarm, please ensure it is switched off now, and we ask you not to take photographs. Thank you.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Jude Kelly, Artistic Director of South Bank Centre, and I'm sure you share with me great excitement that we have tonight J.K. Rowling with us in the flesh. Yes, isn't that marvellous? Do you know, I can't tell you how excited I am that you're giving the reception that you might give to Lady Gaga for a writer of words and somebody who creates books. Now, I brought my children up on Harry Potter. I read it to them, and then they read it to me. We all knew then the excitement of somebody who really wanted to communicate story and talk about the inner emotions and the outer excitement of what it was like to be a child and a teenager and growing up with magic and reality. I remember watching last night this excellent interview that our head of literature and spoken word, James Runcie, conducted with J.K. Rowling, and thinking how marvellous it is to hear somebody say, I have no material need to write this book, but I have an urgency about a story I want to tell people. That's the real root of why people make art. So I feel more excited about doing this interview than we would if we were interviewing a new Prime Minister. It's probably more important as well in terms of the cultural life of the country. And to conduct this very special interview, we have the doyen of cultural interviews, Mark Lawson, who really is somebody that has been on our stages many times. We're always excited by his in-depth research and also his lightness of touch, because he is in himself a great entertainer. So this is it. Welcome to the stage, Mark Lawson and J.K. Rowling.
Good evening. I'll just explain how the event will work. There are essentially four sections. J.K. Rowling will begin with a short reading from the beginning of the Casual Vacancy, published this morning officially at 8 a.m. Has anyone here read it yet?
Oh my God.
Yes. So we'll give speed reading awards later in the evening for people who have done that. So there'll be a short reading from that. Then we'll talk for a while. And this event is being streamed online, and then we will have a second reading. The second reading, we'll just explain, this was made clear when people booked, I think, but it is an adult novel, and we'll talk about that and the transition towards that. But the second reading does contain what the BBC famously calls strong language. We want to make that clear. If there are younger people here, then it's a decision for their parents and or guardians with them. And then after that second reading, we will take questions from the audience. There'll be 2 microphones, and we'll go round and get through as many as we can. And then after that, there is the signing, as you know. So we'll start, as I said, with J.K. Rowling reading from The Casual Vacancy. Ooh.
Very short. Part 1. A casual vacancy is deemed to have occurred A. When a local councillor fails to make his declaration of acceptance of office within the proper time, or B. When his notice of resignation is received, or C. On the day of his death. Sunday. Barry Fairbrother did not want to go out to dinner. He had endured a thumping headache for most of the weekend and was struggling to make a deadline for the local newspaper. However, his wife had been a little stiff and uncommunicative over lunch, and Barry deduced that his anniversary card had not mitigated the crime of shutting himself away in the study all morning. It did not help that he had been writing about Crystal, whom Mary disliked, although she pretended otherwise. "Mary, I want to take you out to dinner," he lied, to break the frost. 19 years, kids, 19 years, and your mother's never looked lovelier. Mary had softened and smiled, so Barry had telephoned the golf club because it was nearby and they were sure of getting a table. He tried to give his wife pleasure in little ways because he had come to realise, after nearly 2 decades together, how often he disappointed her in the big things. It was never intentional. They simply had very different notions of what ought to take up most space in life. Barry and Mary's 4 children were past the age of needing a babysitter. They were watching television when he said goodbye to them for the last time, and only Declan, the youngest, turned to look at him and raised his hand in farewell. That's all you're getting. That's all you're getting now.
Yeah.
More in a bit.
That was the short and clean reading. We'll do
it's
the.
Not that bad.
It's not that bad, really, but we have to say this. It's better to be warned, I think.
Right.
Now, this is quite an intimate gig for you, because the last time you appeared in public, there were
80,000
people in the Olympic Stadium,
yeah.
An estimated billion people watching worldwide. We don't know how many people are watching on the live stream, but it's probably not a billion.
That actually makes me feel sick as you say that, and I've done it now. So, God, yes, that was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying.
And we're going to talk mainly about the book, but you are one of those, the small number of people who were directly involved in that extraordinary opening ceremony. You don't very often appear in public, so presumably you took quite a bit of persuasion.
I did take a little bit of persuading. Danny asked me to do it twice before I said yes. And actually, he said, well, can I just meet you and talk to you about it? And he told me exactly what was going to happen, including the Queen coming out of the plane. And when he told me that, I just thought, no one's even going to remember I was there. That's brilliant. So I thought, yeah. Anyway, I have to say, it was one of the best things I've ever done. It was so moving. It was just wonderful, wonderful. I was so proud to be part of it.
And there'd been various stages in the various ends of Harry Potter. There were 5 years ago, the last book, and then more recently, the film.
Yeah.
But in a way, that was another, just in the summer before the publication of this book, that moment when Voldemort went into the air, it was kind of another rite of passage for the Harry Potter story. That
was one of those moments where I attended a full dress rehearsal of the Olympic ceremony before the night. And I have to say that after 15 years of being the author of Harry Potter, to an extent, the references to Harry become white noise in your life, and you get used to that cropping up here and there. But every now and again, I have this sort of full-body chill where I think, what the hell happened? How did this happen? And I had it when Voldemort rose up out of the middle of the Olympic Stadium. This 18-metre high Voldemort, and I just went icy cold, and I thought that it was an idea on a bit of scrap paper. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, it was quite a big moment for me.
And we come to today, the publication day, after much speculation and waiting, of the Casual Vacancy.
And it's not a whodunit.
It's not.
No, so Ian Rankin was wrong.
Yes. We talked about this, yes. Ian Rankin said he would not be surprised if you wrote a whodunit, but he has to be surprised now because it's not one.
No. Yes, I think that's succinctly put, yes. That's correct.
Just give us a sense of how you spent publication day, because obviously, clearly you're here now. But were you up at 8? And
well, we flew down from Edinburgh today. I'm here with my husband and my eldest daughter, and truthfully, I've spent most of the day trying to avoid newspapers. I will read reviews, but I don't like to do it on the day that I've got to go out and talk about the book. It just muddies things for me. So. Although I do know a couple of things that have been said, some of which are great. I'm more pleased by some things. You might be surprised at a couple of the things that I think are great, but that's neither here nor there.
Do you want to tell us?
maybe when we stop filming. And I will tell you when we stop filming. And what was I saying? Yes, so we sat in our hotel and watched Men in Black 3. It was great. I'd never seen it. It was really good. Yeah.
And some writers claim never to read reviews, but you say there will come a point where you sit down
Yeah, I
and read
probably
them.
will. With Deathly Hallows, I didn't read any reviews at all for ages. I kind of felt about Hallows the way I feel about this book. In both cases, I felt, well, I've done the best I can do. The book is what I want it to be. So, you know, I don't mean it in an arrogant way, but that's it, you know, I'm done. So it doesn't really matter. I did later, it was months later though, I did look at some things and, you know, I don't know, it takes the heat out of it if you're not reading them on publication day.
Have you ever responded to a review? Has a reviewer...
No, I've never stalked anyone or thrown a brick through their window or, no. I think you're ill-advised to do that, yes.
No, not in that way, but I mean, reacting to one, has anything said in a review ever made you think about your work?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, yeah. I mean, your legitimate criticism can be very useful. So, yeah, sometimes you would read a review and think, well, you know, it's not your thing, but it's my thing, so that's okay too. It depends very much on who's reviewing and what their take is, I suppose.
The 5 years since the last Harry book, as I say, so at what point in those 5 years had Casual Vacancy, was it in your mind before that point, or is it all since?
No, it's, I had the idea for the Casual Vacancy while I was on tour in America for Deathly Hallows, and I had the idea on a plane, and yeah, I know. Something about me and vehicles.
Yeah.
I have to be moving clearly to have an idea.
Although it's lucky it wasn't, because famously the story of how Harry Potter began...
There was a train.
The train had stopped.
Yes, I'm going up, mark it.
But I was going to say...
So the next idea will be Space Shuttle or something.
Well, you could get on to Richard Branson.
No, I was offered a seat.
Were you?
Yeah, I was just for a mere £2 million, I could have been on the shuttle.
But you've turned it down?
Yeah, I turned it down, yeah.
But the train had stopped. I mean, the plane presumably hadn't, we hope. That was just...
No, we weren't in a death spiral. And I suddenly thought, if I survive this, I will write the Casual Vacancy. No, I was just sitting there, having a perfectly nice flight. And, I don't really know why, what made me think of it. But
what was it?
It was local elections sabotaged by teenagers, basically. So like the idea for Harry Potter, I can't claim that the whole idea was there in my head in the plane, but that was the germ of it.
And you knew from that idea, had you decided before that your next book would be adult fiction?
No, I was completely open. I had, at that point, I had another book for children, half-written, which is still half-written. Yeah, I had a couple of other ideas. But when I had this idea, I just thought, that's the one I really, really want to write. So everything else was put on hold.
One of my reactions to the book, which is something not a lot of people have said, I think, ever, is that it makes local government and parish councils fascinating. I mean, it's astonishing.
Oh, I take that as a huge compliment.
It is. It's astonishing stuff.
James Runcie is here right now, and James has been very sweet. And I actually told James what I was writing a few years ago in a cafe. I can still remember the look on his face when I said, well, it's about local council election. I cannot say that his face said, oh, you must write it. So I do take that as a compliment.
No, and one of the fascinating things is you just read one of the epigraphs. The epigraphs in the book, in many sections, are from a book by Charles Arnold Baker called Local Council Administration, the 7th edition.
And I think I'm probably the only parish councillor in the world who... I'm the only non-parish councillor who's actually read the book.
And you read the explanation of what a casual vacancy is, and so in the book, for anyone in the audience who hasn't finished it yet, Barry, who holds the seat, he dies suddenly, and then it opens up the prospect of this. But the epigraph to one of the sections, which is one of the most amazing things I have ever read, is again from this quote, from this book by Charles Arnold Baker. It says, persons of unsound mind may vote during lucid intervals.
Go on.
Yeah.
There's more to it than that. It gets funnier. It's brilliant.
Right.
When I found it, I nearly fell off my chair laughing, and I thought, that's so going in the book. It's persons of unsound mind may vote during lucid intervals, but... oh, damn it. Where is it?
We'll get to it.
I'll find it. Keep asking me questions.
Just talk among yourselves online. You look for it. If somebody read this book without knowing that you'd written it, I think the way we might guess is...
I've got it.
You found it. Go on. Well done.
At common law, idiots are subject to a permanent legal incapacity to vote, but persons of unsound mind may vote during lucid intervals.
Wow.
Brilliant. Anyway, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, if we'd read the book without knowing this by you, and at one point you speculated you'd like to publish under a pseudonym, the way we might have guessed, I think, is teenagers. Teenagers are clearly, they're one of your big themes as a writer.
Yeah, I think that's true, although I would say, to warn anyone who hasn't read the book, this isn't Harry, Ron and Hermione. These are very... Some people clearly have got away into the book. These are very different teenagers. These are contemporary teenagers.
Well, again, to make that clear, and I stress that not all of what I'm about to read is done...
I think I know what you're going to read, but go on.
No, I'm not. It's done by the... I can't read it because we're streaming online.
Oh, yeah.
No, when I was reading the book in the office where I had to read it, I made a little note down one side of my notebook of some of the themes, and I wrote drug addiction, racism, rape, alleged paedophilia, violence...
It's a cheery book. Clearly a comedy. A good beach read.
And again, we're making clear for any very young people here, but it is specifically, both in those themes and in the language, both the what we call on the BBC the C word, the F word, they're used. So that was it is made very, very clear that this is a different kind of book.
Yes, it is. I genuinely think, and this may sit rather oddly with the list you've just read out, that it is a humorous book. Some of the humour may be rather dark in places. But yes, it's life in a small town. It's life in a small town with everything that entails.
Pagford is the village in the southwest of England. A lot of people have been claiming that it was based on them, but it seemed more generic to me.
It's not a real place at all. It's in the West Country, which is where I grew up, so I know that area. But Pagford is entirely fictional. It made me smile because my editor told me that apparently places were claiming to be Pagford before the book came out. And I said to David, wait till they've read it. I'm not sure we'll have many people saying, we are the real Pagford. So, it has it's a very beautiful place. It's dominated by an abbey. And the place where I grew up, Chepstow, though it's not Chepstow, I hasten to add, but it was dominated by a castle. So, yeah, it's a very pretty town, and it has unwilling jurisdiction over a council estate about 10 miles away, and that is the conflict in the book. When Barry dies, he's been someone who's quite keen to maintain this council estate as part of Pagford, but many townsfolk would like to see it cut adrift.
And that is very important because in the book we have many, many layers of society. There are different classes, different races, different ages, different genders. You do all of it. It's a deliberately panoramic story.
Yeah, I think it's a realistic view of what that kind of community is like. As I say, I did grow up in that kind of community, though this isn't an attempt to depict Chepstow in the slightest. I mean, I haven't been in Chepstow since I was 18, which is rather a long time now. Well, I've been back to visit, but I haven't lived there since I was 18. Yes, you would. I mean, I did consciously set out to depict a small society, and as you say, there's a slice through the middle, so you get older people of different classes, and in very different situations.
And writing, to generalise, is a combination of instinct and decisions. I mean, the writer is in control, but not in control of everything. The fact that you were writing for adults, mentally, did you make a mental adjustment?
It's hard to say because I have written for adults before, in that I doubt any of it. Well, I need to be very careful what I say because I don't want to give the impression I'm sitting on a huge amount of manuscripts, because I'm not. But before Potter, I did write things for adults, so it's not a voice I had to struggle to find. It's not that I'd never written for adults before. In some senses, it's freeing. In other senses, it was a challenging book because you have multiple points of view. It's not a linear story necessarily. You're darting around and at times moving back in time. So it had its own challenges, but I loved writing it. I really, really enjoyed writing it.
The control of viewpoint was that was one of the things that I found most impressive and interesting. We can only vaguely hint at what happens, but there is a very bleak and shocking climax to the book, a scene which made me cry, I can admit, a scene. I have
been saying that I don't think, I maybe shouldn't say this, I don't know, but I don't think I would have much to say to anyone who didn't at least tear up a bit. I don't think I could have any kind of warm feeling towards someone who didn't feel sad towards the end of it.
Those people in the audience who have read it, did you cry?
Oh, that's a vile thing to say to them now. Or are you some sort of subhuman?
Yes, it's okay. It's fine. Good. That's a relief. But in that sequence, you keep switching viewpoint, which is one of the things that makes it so dramatic, I think.
Yes, I think so. Really, the whole novel tends towards a point just before the final scene where the reader, I hope, has come to a point where they understand why three people, I have to be so careful what I say, three people don't take a certain action. So by then, I hope that you as a reader would totally understand why they behave in the way that they do. So I've had to get inside a lot of different characters' heads. Yeah.
There's also a particular sentence in the book which, although it didn't make me cry,
I don't need everything to make you cry, Mark.
No, I'm not complaining it didn't, but it's certainly, it's a starting sentence. I think it made me think a lot, and I think it will make a lot of parents think about this. A mother is thinking about her children, and she says, "Tiny ghosts of your living children haunted your heart."
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And how they would hate it if they knew that. I have my daughter's here right now listening to this, my eldest daughter. And I think we discussed that after she read the book. And she said to me, "Is that how you feel?" And I said, "Yes." Sorry, but I do. You do.
And it's the implication is that parenthood
is a continual process of loss.
Yes. Of mourning, in effect.
Yes, if you enjoy being a parent, it's everything. It's always bittersweet. In fact, I can remember Neil saying to me, about one of our younger children, he said to me, "Why does it make you feel sad? You look at them and you're full of love, but there's always a sadness in it." And I said, "It's mortality. You just know we're on the conveyor belt at different points. A parting is inherent, isn't it, in this situation always?" This is really cheering everyone up.
No, but it's...
You brought it up, though.
Yeah, I did, because it's a serious book, and that's why I did. On the question of mortality, we can cheer it up even more. It is a J.K. Rowling theme.
Death?
Yes,
it is.
If you discover you're a character in a J.K. Rowling book, first of all...
you're going to be worried, aren't you?
But you think you wouldn't get very good odds at Paddy Power on coming out alive from the book.
Is this my literary reputation? Killer. Yes, death obsesses me. What can I tell you? Yes, it does. It does. Mortality does. I can't really understand why it doesn't obsess everyone. I think it does, really. I'm just maybe a little more out about it.
And there are a number, we're only going to say a number, we're not going to say what the number is. There are a number of deaths in...
Yeah, some you won't care about those, so don't worry. I wouldn't worry too much.
But that was one of the very striking things about Harry Potter from the very beginning.
I kept killing people.
Well, no, even before you kill them, it starts with this haunted orphan. The fact it starts with an orphan child, so it begins with death in effect, and then is probably not plot spoiling now. A couple of major characters die later on in the...
Just a few.
In the sequence.
Well, I suppose, why does it obsess me? I don't know. I think that the easy answer is my mother died when I was 25. She was only 45. You know, that was clearly a very formative experience. But I've got a feeling I always was a little preoccupied with the subject. I think that I was born into an old family, by which I mean aged, not aristocratic, and people did die a lot through my teens. We had elderly relatives dying quite a lot, and my sister and I are the only two in our generation. So maybe that's why. Maybe I just, that was something I met repeatedly when I was younger.
And in Harry Potter, which is specifically supernatural, there are people are fighting death in that way in various supernatural ways. Although it's a naturalistic book, the Casual Vacancy, the supernatural element is religion. I mean, there is a considerable amount of religion. Anglicanism we might expect because of it's a parish council, but Sikhism, there is a lot in the book.
Yes, there is, yeah. I became very interested in Sikhism years and years and years ago. I was about 25. And I was very friendly with a woman my age, who was from a Sikh family. And she wasn't, I would say that religion was not by any means a particularly dominant force in her life, but we had one serious conversation on the subject in which she told me, because I was very ignorant about Sikhism, in which she told me how egalitarian it is in its founding principles. And she was really referring to the fact that men and women are set as equals in the Holy Book, and that women can perform the religious rites just as men can. I was very struck by that, and I never forgot it. And for various reasons, some of which we can't really discuss, because it gives away a lot about this book, I wanted this family to be at the heart of Pagford. They're in many ways the middle-class dream. They're two highly achieving parents, but I wanted them to be of a different ethnicity. I wanted them to be second-generation Britons. Again, for reasons because that draws out a lot of attitudes in the other people in Pagford. And because in many ways this is a book about outsiders. So these people are very much insiders and outsiders simultaneously. And Sikhism, for many reasons, I just thought they've got to be Sikhs. So I ended up, from that small seed, doing a vast amount of research on Sikhism that in the end not that much got into the book, because ultimately that's not the most important thing about this family. The kids aren't particularly bothered by their religion. They've been brought up at a Church of England primary school. But it's in there, it's in the mix. And actually, as far as religious morality goes in this book, it is Sikhism that provides that morality, whereas the Church of England is represented by a very beautiful but largely empty church. Yes.
And you clearly have a sympathy for religion yourself.
Yes, and I say it as one who's clearly I've had my run-ins with Christian fundamentalists. See, it does amuse me because people said to me about the Casual Vacancy, you're so brave with the Casual Vacancy. Oh, you're brave. Tackling these subjects is so brave of you. And I was thinking, my book's burnt. I wrote this cheery little book about wizards that I thought was so moral, and it caused all this trouble. So I've got quite a way to go to upset people quite as much with the Casual Vacancy. So there you are.
But I was
curious.
I was just going to ask you about that. I was always mystified by that reading of Harry Potter because I had children of exactly the right age, and so I read the book several times with them. And we had a neighbour who said, who was very religious, Christian, and said, you must not read those books to your children. You must not take them to the films because these books are satanic. And I'd never heard that until that point.
Would this be a good moment to confirm that? Or?
Yeah.
Honestly, what can you? I mean.
No, but what I said to them, I was going to say, my answer was, I was amazed by this because having read the books, it seemed to me that actually the Christian story is there as one of the myths within it, that you have this miraculous child who is going to save the world.
I wouldn't want
to.
No, I'm very seriously. I wouldn't want to push that too far because Harry was never supposed to be Christ or.
No,
but you are absolutely right to say that there is Christian symbolism in the book. I'm not certainly not being very evangelical, I struggle with faith a lot, but there's a poetry and beauty about the Bible that I think most people writing in the Western tradition will borrow from. And the idea of self-sacrifice, there is no greater love than this, is so beautiful and powerful that I think there would be very few people who would turn away from that idea. So that was in the Potter books. In this book, yes, am I drawn to spirituality and faith? I am. I have a lot of questions. I do struggle with these issues, but I do think about them a lot, and I would agree that that's apparent in the Casual Vacancy too. Yeah.
Just for, we're moving towards the second reading in a moment. When I was reading the book, particularly when I was reading some sections for the second time, the rhyming, the subconscious rhyming school of literary criticism, because two of the characters in the book rhyme.
Barry, Harry.
No, not just Barry, Harry, but also.
I was so annoyed because it never crossed my mind. I swear to you, this is the thing, what's so obvious to you is not at all obvious to me. I was going to call him Kevin, and I now really wish I had. I was just looking for a very what would have been, to my generation, a kind of working class, normal man's name for a man who was roughly my age, because Barry dies age 44. And I was, I think, 44 when I started writing this book. No, I wasn't. I was younger than that. But anyway, you get the drift. So I wish I'd called him Kevin. But anyway, go on.
It shows, no, it gets worse, this. I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Here we go.
There's also...
There's nothing that rhymes with Hermione, I know that for sure.
Oh, no.
What do you mean, oh, no?
No, there is not Hermione, no, because that's too hard. But there's one, there is a small and vulnerable character who rhymes with Dobby.
I nearly spat water over the microphone. Now, come on. Really? The thing, look, someone told me once how many characters were in the Harry Potter books. I can't remember, but it was a ludicrous amount, and it shocked me. And it's very difficult not to rhyme with any of the characters. I can't spend my whole life trying to avoid rhyming with characters in Harry Potter books. So, no, he's not supposed to be Dobby. You heard it here first.
I think it's...
You think it's subconscious? No, it's not. Do you know what I was thinking about? This is the truth. I thought that the mother who named him Robbie was the kind of a woman who might like Robbie Williams. Ah. There you go. So now you know.
You'll have to buy the book to find out the one who rhymes with Voldemort, but it's really, that's fantastically clever. That one. Now look, on the Barry thing.
Yes.
You probably... Do you know this? Your first editor at Bloomsbury, Barry Cunningham.
Barry Cunningham, yes.
Has said that...
I didn't name Harry after him subconsciously.
He said you named Barry after him. And that, seriously, he has said this today. And he said this in an approving way. He said that to show your transition towards adult fiction, you had symbolically killed him. He really did.
Do you know what? I honestly think it would be simpler and probably achieve my ends better if just every lunatic theory from now on I agree with. And then they'll all clash with each other and cancel each other out, won't they?
I enjoyed that one. I thought
that's great. That's good.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And on that point, because there's so much written and said about these books, from the Christian fundamentalist reading we mentioned to the Barry, symbolically killing Barry, your editor, theory. Do you stay away from this kind of stuff as much as you can? Do you? I mean, you don't seek out
what analysis of my work? Yeah. No, I don't seek it out at all. That way, madness lies. Yeah, I really don't. I mean, I would answer honestly if someone puts a direct question to me. I would always tell the truth, but I don't go looking for that stuff. No.
We're now going to stop the live streaming of this. So the audience is now reduced from 1 billion to 900 here in at the South Bank, in London.
I think we'd need to throw in Usain Bolt to get 1 billion on this.
Well, and also the Queen dropping out of a helicopter.
And the Queen coming out of a helicopter.
That kind of stuff. So here at the South Bank Centre in London, we've stopped the live streaming. J.K. Rowling will now do the second